dead. So we were in the process of getting ready to move to Baltimore. So the living room was piled high with packed boxes, and at the time we had 3 cats, 5 cats, 25 cats. I don't know. We had a lot of cats. And the cats would sit on top of all the boxes. So we called the police to find out what to do. And it's taking a really, really long time for the police to get there. So anyway, the cop comes in, and the only single chair in the living room was this very narrow rocking chair. So he sits in the rocking chair, and all the stuff on his holster goes flipping up. So he's sitting there with his gun holster flipped up and his radio and whatever in the world it is else that they... Anyway, so he and Dad are, writing down the report together, and neither of them can figure out how to spell squirrel. So at that point, I interjected. So then he tells us what happened before he came into the apartment. And he said that there were 2 things that happened simultaneously. There were 2 calls that came out at the same time. One was our call about the rabid squirrel that was dead. Yeah, possible baby squirrel that was dead, had bitten a human being, possibility of rabies. And the other was some guy who was drunk who was lying in the middle of the road. So the cop gets there first, and he finds the drunk, and he waits for the EMTs to arrive. And the EMTs arrive, and they look at the drunk, not realizing that he's drunk, and they say, God, he sure got bit up, thinking he was bitten by the squirrel. So the cop leaves, and we're told to go to University of Maryland, which was 10 minutes away from where we lived. And we go there, and we knock forever on this door to some lab. And the guy who comes and answers the door was straight out of an old grade B horror movie. He was huge. And he had this time clock thing on his belt. Do you remember that? Or am I making that up? I'm making that up. Okay, well, in my version of this story, well, no, it was like
Was it a flux capacitor?
No, it was like he had to, punch in when he went to the different rounds throughout all the buildings. So anyway, so we left the carcass of the squirrel with him so that they could test it, because the lab would test it for rabies. And then they called you back, a week later or something? And
a week or 2, I don't know.
Yeah, and he didn't have, the rat, fortunately, the squirrel did not have rabies, so it was not a rabid squirrel. But it was a story that kept on giving.
Yeah. And that about wraps it up for this episode of Vetsplaining. Join us next time, and we'll listen to part 2 of my interview with Dr. Hop.